Today we're going to start with all our cards on the table. Self-discipline is what we're dealing with, and it's not a video that I wanted to make in the way I want to make it, but I haven't made a video in what seems like a few weeks, maybe less, I don't know. But it feels long for me. It feels long. So I want to put something out there, and I did promise I would talk about this, and it's a requested video. So let's get right into it, man. Self-discipline, right? Self-discipline is really let's look at the definition. Definition first: the ability to control one's feelings and overcome one's weaknesses, the ability to pursue what one thinks is right despite temptations to abandon it. Now, this is something that schizophrenia takes away from you, right? Self-discipline. You're gonna say, well, what do you mean, Paul? What the heck you mean self-discipline? Schizophrenia takes away from me. Well, if you look at the definition, is ability to control one's feelings and overcome one's weaknesses. And with schizophrenia, we have a lot of weaknesses. We become weak, right? That's the nature of what it does. And how it does is it takes away the feeling of control, right? And it does this through the symptoms, through the hallucinations, the sensory hallucinations. So we got the we got the auditory, visual. Hey, for some reason I can remember. Visual, olfactory, tactile, and so all these hallucinations, and because these things come in ways that affect us on primarily a negative scale, we feel a loss of control, right? Because usually we listen to things that we want to listen to. Obviously, sometimes in some situations it's not the case, but we don't have it's a difference between knowing there's a sound out there that you don't like, maybe, but you got to endure it. Maybe you're at work, maybe it's it's a neighbor playing loud music, whatever, right? That's one thing. But if it's these constant 24/7 shouting and degrading and just tormenting voices that elicit fear, right? Panic, right? And things crawling on your skin, seeing demons and witches and all kinds of foolishness. And then there's the imagination, the internal senses that comes also take on a will of their own. The imagination starts to run wild and tells us things and shows us things, and we get lost in that. The reasoning, all these create a feeling of loss of control because we don't control them. We are prisoners to them, right? So while these thrive, these symptoms, the feelings, this feeling of loss of control, they create weaknesses. We become weaker and weaker, and this is where Carl Jung says schizophrenia. They call it the weakening of the will. But there's a process to how the will gets weakened, right? And one of the ways is the depletion of self-discipline, right? The loss of control. So now you take, for example, someone who's going to school and they want to do well on an exam, right? They want to strive for something and they want to do well in their exam, and yet they got their friend says, "Hey, Paul, man, we got this party tonight. You coming or what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got this big exam, but I want to go to this party too." Right? I'm met with a choice, right? And I say, "Well, what do I want more?" Well, I want to do well in the exam. So sorry, man, I gotta study. All right, man, you're a punk. So yeah, but I know where I want to go, right? So I'm dialed in. I gotta focus. You see, so I got, there's a show on. Hey, I want to watch the show, or I got to get the studying done. All kinds of things that's gonna come to distract you, to pull you off course. But this is where I got to go, so I can shake that off, you know, and go toward my target. Right? That's me before schizophrenia. Then after schizophrenia, it's like I want to strive in life. I want to, you know, um, function in a capacity that's able to be independent, take care of myself, take care of my business. But I can't because I can't even, I can't even I can't take care of myself. I can't even talk to somebody. I can't even just have a regular conversation. I can't go in public. I can't do anything. I've become so weak. I'm internally struggling just for a breath of air, right? How can I focus on work when I can't even take a breath without fighting for it, you know? So I grow, I lose control. I feel like I don't have any control, and I don't have any focus on striving for anything in life because I'm just focused on this delusion that I'm in, and these hallucinations that are fighting against me. I'm just trying to fight back against them. And the more I do that, it's not the less they get, it's the greater they grow, and the less feeling of control that I have, and the less feeling of control I have, the weaker I become, right? So I can't pursue any of my goals, and the temptations rule. The temptation of fear, of doubt, of anxiety, of uh, buying into the visions, buying into what the voices are saying. All these grow, all these become strong, right? And so I lose all discipline to feel in control, right? So, and to overcome any weakness. So, but one of the things that I had to do, if you want to regain that will, where Carl Jung says schizophrenia is a weakening of the will, or the ego, if you want that self to come forth, that will to that presence to come forth and to take back control, then we have to start thinking in a manner that is going to bring us in that seat of control, right? You take the athlete who has to wake up early, hit the gym, and start to train, and then if they're just trying to break out, then they have to go to work, maybe a full-time job, and then after work they got to get back on the training. It's a very uh, disciplined life that they have to live, and there's so much you don't have, but you're dialed in, and you do the things that you don't really want to do. They're difficult, but you do them for the sake of your goal, right? And this is where having self-discipline comes in, and how we can start to learn to cultivate that is we think about what we want, right? Before, I couldn't think about, I wanted to be like, strive like everybody else. I want to uh, be independent, take care of myself, take care of my business, but I couldn't because I was so busy in delusions, and I couldn't have a conversation with anybody. I couldn't even go outside really, right? I'm struggling inside against voices and stuff. I couldn't even couldn't even hear my voice in my own head, right? But I had no confidence as well. No confidence, anxious, fearful. That was all me. right? The smallest person in the world. That was me. I was the smallest person, smaller than an ant. That was where I started from with schizophrenia in order to get back. But we start by recognizing the obstacles in our way to our goals, and we start to face those obstacles, right? In order to gain self-discipline, we have to learn that comfort is the place where we die, where we suffer the most, right? And we'll stay there and we'll never gain anything. So we have to learn to make ourselves uncomfortable, right? It's not the things that you want to do that's going to get you where you need to get to, it's the things that you don't want to do. That's the things that you generally have to do. Right? For me, it started with just talking to people, talking to my mom, right? And I'll use another example. When I was trying to lose weight, right, I was nearly 300 pounds, and uh, and this is while I was recovering as well. I was still in the recovery process, and I would get up at, I think, like 5 o'clock, 4:30 or something like that, and I worked to 7, and I got up one morning to go to a jog, to go for a jog, and I was so tired because I'd worked the previous day, and I was so tired. My alarm clock went off, and I was so tired, and I felt so heavy, and I said, no, I'm just gonna go back to sleep. I'll do it. I'll work out tomorrow. And then I went back to sleep. And when my alarm clock woke up, and it was time, alarm clock alarmed, and I wake up. My alarm clock went off again. At my work time, to get to work, I got up and got going. And while I was at work, I thought, man, had I gotten up and worked out, it would have been done, and I would have been good because I felt good at work while I was up and working. I thought, man, if I got it done, I'd have been all right. I'd have been good. And I felt so like defeated because I didn't accomplish this. And so the next day I determined, you know what? This is what I said to myself. Okay, there's something that came to me, and I realized this, and I say, okay, my body is not my friend, right? And don't get me wrong, your body is your ally. It can be, but it can also be your biggest enemy. It is your biggest enemy as well. But we have to make it our friend. We have to make it serve us, or else it'll serve itself. And so I realized that my body, it's given to the worst things. It's lazy, it just wants to sleep, it just wants comfort. He'll eat and eat until he gets like fat, still eat and eat, sit on the couch all day. And I say, you know what? I gotta take control of this. There's a mind here, a person that wants to control this body, but this body is speaking something else. And when my alarm clock goes off, I know I want to get up, but my body is saying, I'm too tired. This body speaks. I want to sleep, right? And so what I'm going to do is that when I wake up and my body speaks to me and it says, I'm too tired, that's going to be my signal to get up. And sure enough, the next morning, my alarm clock went off, and my body said, I'm so tired. I'll do it tomorrow. And right then, I popped up. Right up. And I got myself ready. I went out for a jog. And I'll tell you what, while I was jogging, I felt so good that I done that. I said, man, I felt so tired and heavy, and had I listened to my body, I would have slept again, and I would have gone through the day and regretted it. And regret is a hell of a thing, right? So I defied my body, and I got up and I worked out, just went for a half an hour jog, and I got ready for work. And I went to work after, right? Got myself showered up and all that stuff like that. But I went to work, and I felt so good because I won. And the next day, I done it again. That's how I built that discipline in order to lose the weight, right? And then there's the eating portion. When I was addicted to sugar and juice, and man, I was drinking all this juice, and then it's just like I keep drinking juice, and man, I wasn't satisfied. I kept going back, and then I drank a glass of water, and it just hit me different. I was like, oh my gosh. I went back for another one, and it was just so satisfying. It's something that the juice wasn't touching. And then, but I'd open the fridge, and then the juice or the pop would just be staring at me, and I would literally freeze because I wanted it. The sugar was calling to me, but I knew the water was better for me, and I need that in order to reach my goal. And I just froze right there, just having this internal struggle. My body's calling for one thing, and yet I know I need something else, and I just turned away and ran to the sink. Right, I got the water, and I continued to pull that way to the water until eventually the pull for the juice, the sugar, left my body. The water cleansed all that, and then I just became just able to drink water, 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 water. I didn't have those struggles anymore. It became less and less because why? I chose to discipline myself. The temptations pulled me that way, right? I didn't necessarily want to, like, I was feeling to go for this thing that was more pleasurable, right? And it's the same thing with schizophrenia. You heard some of my stories. That's how I discipline myself in order to build confidence in talking to people. You know, I didn't feel like talking to my mom. I hated my mom. I hid from her all the time. But when I determined where I wanted to go, despite the voices and all that and the misery, I went and I had a conversation, controlled myself. I felt like, see, my leg popped off and run. I had to fight to resist following after it. I was compelled, but I didn't. I chose to discipline myself, and I gave myself 5 minutes of conversation, and I stood there for 5 minutes before I slowly made myself way back to the room where I collapsed. Because I was so just the anxiety. Oh man, it was hell. But I went back the next day. Why? Because I needed to make myself uncomfortable. And I need to find my way in this misery. Discipline. And the more you do that, this is your will coming to the surface. This is the ego. This is you coming up, declaring yourself, saying, I am here. I am not giving up. I am fighting. I am taking command of this life, of this vessel, of all that is mine. There's no more surrendering, no more retreating. I am going forward. This is how we regain ourselves, because now I am acting of my own will, my own intention, my own desires. It is not based on fear. It's not based on doubts. It's not based on any of these negatives. It is based on positives, hope, faith, courage, love. These are hold your focus, and they pull you up, because now there's a voice that's speaking. Even if you can't hear your thoughts, just acting on something that's good that you want in your life, that's your voice. Speaking, declaring to the universe that I am here. I am alive, and I'm coming to take what is mine. Discipline. Once you start to find this, you will find yourself. That's how I found myself. So anyway, I'm going to end this video because it's probably longer than I want to make it anyways. But that's the idea. We can talk a lot about this, but hopefully you get it. Until next time, we are out. Later.